Welcome back to the Rock Your Best Life podcast. With me today, I have the wonderful and beautiful Emily Harveaux. And she is a good friend of mine in the community, and I just love all the things that she's doing. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Rosa. It's so fun to see you. I've really missed you. This is great to get to connect again.
Yes, and I've had you on my podcast before with Coach Raymond. And that podcast is one that keeps getting downloaded. And
Good.
yeah, and back when we did the feasting and the fasting, which I know that you're still coaching on in the steak and butter gang. And so yeah, that's one that people still find a lot of value with. And
You know, Rosa, it is a foundational, phenomenal program. And I'm sorry to just like toot my own horn about this or toot Raymond's horn, but there's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. And I recognized that immediately when I met Raymond, 2021, my first year on carnivore. And so it was listening to his message transform my fasting message. And I was already a pretty pro faster by then. I'd already lost well over 100 pounds and had improved my health and was on this carnivore plus fasting. But I really did need Raymond's feedback to understand my best fit for the combination of fasting and carnivore together. So we are so proud that we get to teach this still. And so we have the Chisel Workshop is available online, and we can, give links. People can reach out to me on Instagram if they want to join the program. It's an incredible program. And we have had so many people, Rosa, you were featured as one of our transformation in this process, and that journey keeps happening. That story keeps repeating. And so now it's definitely something that, you can do for a period of time and that you learn lifelong lessons from. And yet we still are offering it. We still have about 200 people in the program. And so, and about, a lot more when you consider the other areas that we teach it in a couple of different formats. But the workshop format is going really well. We still have live classes in there where we can help you in a chat box. And we have, the new folks that have come to it, found it, applied the techniques, applied priming, have done the alternate day fasting, and now they're getting it's very similar to the story that you got. So it's just so fun to keep doing it. But I'm not surprised that people can continue to come back to it. We were able to present at KetoCon about it this last year, and we gave a really wonderful presentation and had so many people there. It was standing room only, and the room was packed. We went over and people loved it. It was like a little rock concert or something. So it was, well, you know how passionate our community is and how
yes,
passionate it
I
is when
know.
we
And I really wanted to go to the KetoCon, but I couldn't make it. But I am so, I mean, it's almost like a proud moment when you know some of the people that are presenting.
yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, this is so great.
Well,
Um,
honestly, Rosa, we would have featured you if you were there, because that's exactly what we
oh,
did. And they didn't know it, but we had some of our very favorite members, longtime members and coaching clients who actually did a lot of the speaking. So we had Audra, we had Suzanne Strasburger, we had Sally, who's now a coach for us, Coach Sally Bowers. And we had so we featured our success stories. And so you were such a shining success. So we would have had you come up and talk. So that was a really fun part of the talk as well. And it was, kind of a surprise for them. They didn't know that we were going to ask that. We told them about 10 minutes before, would you guys be willing to share a little bit? And the things that they shared, Rosa, brought the crowd and us to absolute tears. Because when you are truly nourished and you are healing your relationship with food, and you've been a slave to a poor relationship with food for decades, that's a big change in your life. So we missed you, and we're hoping to be back there and be able to be a part of things next year. So hopefully the KetoCon, it's now called Hack Your Health. And so hopefully that conference will just keep on growing and will be a place where carnivores, low carb, fasters can, get together and really encourage each other.
Well, that is so awesome. I'm so glad to hear that they were able to tell their stories, because
Yep.
I mean that's what's so important in this community, is just being able to tell your story, because a lot of times we feel like we're not heard, like what we're going through, it doesn't, it's not relevant. because maybe other people don't, you know, sometimes other people can't understand. Like, how could taking plants out, you know, how
Yeah.
could taking plants out of our diet help us, in so many ways, you know.
It's true. And also I think just the real examples like Melanie was one of our success stories as well. And you look at her and she's in her 50s and oh my goodness, she is so fit and strong and just beautiful and confident, and just to know, so to see those personal stories, but to actually see these women and as strong, carnivore, confident, transformed men and women, I think that added a little something special to, the whole vibe of everything. So yeah, it was a ton of fun.
I want to get to your story,
Okay.
okay? Because you've helped so many people to start their journey into better health. And so I want to go back to the very beginning, for you, how you were able to transform your health and what tools that you used and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was later in life. And so if we have a pile of mistakes, it's a mountain. It's a 14K. It's you know. And so I am saddened because the correct information was not around. It wasn't around for my grandparents, for my parents, and for me growing up. And so when I look back and look at everything, at the mountain of mistakes that I think that most people can really relate to, that somewhere when all these dietary recommendations changed for us in a country, we became more and more focused on low fat, no concern about sugar, no real understanding about what's happening on a metabolic and a hormonal level. Then I think it's just this recipe for disaster. The best things we have out there are like counting points or something, and like putting little weird, I ate my vegetables and fruit, and so I think that it was decades of mistakes. But one thing that I always kind of kept coming back to, that I guess some of the diet industry got right, would be meetings and gathering. And so there was something in all of those. I was a big Weight Watcher. I did all of them. But, in the Weight Watchers, you come to a meeting and you agree on a concept, you kind of study a concept together and you walk away, rah, 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 and you have your little thing that you can jot down on. And so I do think that community has always been such a huge part of it. I was struggling with weight, food, overeating, and was the chubby kid from the time that I was probably like 8. I think I was about 4th grade when a doctor called me out and told my mom, oh, guess what he told him? You're going to love this. He said, watch the greasy foods.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I was, so embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh. That's so, but when you think about it, okay. And I guess maybe if he's talking about seed oils, I could agree with him, or vegetable oils, or, the grease. And this is, to me, I'm just like, dang it. It was just so wrong right at that point. And got me thinking, oh, that maybe diet pop was the answer, or that maybe, Dexatrim. By the time I was a teenager, I was doing those kinds of things, was taking diet pills and was taking diet pop, but I was still eating candy bars. And so I had like enough activity that I kept a normal-ish looking shape, but I always felt self-conscious. I was always bigger. And in that world, as a teenager, meant that I didn't get the boyfriends, I didn't get the attention, and I wanted that so bad. But it was my skinny friends that got all of that, and I was like the friend zone person, right? Which I look at it now and I'm actually very thankful, because who wants to date in high school anyways? Like, those are just mature losers. Like, it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
There was something better for me, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I had just gone up and down the scale. I had a boyfriend for a short time in high school that took my picture. I was in the theater. I loved being on the stage, right? And so I was in the play, I think it was called Harvey, and I played this crazy aunt character. And but I was up there and he took my picture from the school paper and he took a pencil and shaded my thighs and went on both sides and shaded them and made it so I looked skinny and had a thigh gap. And he said, see how pretty you'd be if you just started running.
Oh gosh.
That was my boyfriend. I was like,
Oh, yeah, that's really gotta be like, oh, a shot to your heart and your confidence.
It was, but I got my revenge on that one because, we went our separate ways and went to college and all that, and we looped around. One of the summers we were back, and I think was maybe thinner that summer. It's always so funny your weight, how you feel, and how you feel about revenge about people and things like that. But we hung out, and he said, that time we were dating was the happiest time in my life, and I said, that time we were dating was the worst time in my life.
Yeah.
I got him back. How dare he try to trim out my thighs? Like, what a jerk. But my first, so I did a lot of dieting, and I did a program when I was 20 years old that was no sugar, no grains, but it was calorie counting and it was restriction. But I had gotten down pretty thin, met my husband. And so when I met my husband, we'd be going out places around Spokane, Washington, and people would be like, Emily, you've lost so much weight. You look so good. And I was like, shh. Like, I'm trying to do a thing here, like, stop it. But even when I was that was kind of a Weight Watcher period of time, but I was still so sugar addicted, Rosa. I had Hershey syrup. We would have them in this can that you pop the lid on it.
Yeah, I
Fat
remember.
Hershey syrup is fat free. Okay. So
Oh, yeah,
oh,
it is.
oh, that's a good food. That's a good food. And so you pop the thing on one and pop the thing out that, and I would binge drink it. I would go and
Oh my gosh.
so that's how strong my emotional connection and my coping and how much I was white knuckling. And so whether I was down and was a size 8 or whether I was at my full top weight and was a size 26, I was white knuckling it wherever I was on that journey. So I had done a program in church, again, community, right?
Mhm.
And this was a program that was actually focused on fasting. When I think back and I was like, what was I doing? Oh, I was fasting. I just didn't call it that. We were waiting for hunger, and it was called the Weigh Down Workshop. It's kind of interesting. I led that class for years. But it didn't stay off because it didn't fix my nutrition. And so when the weight gain really started getting severe is when I had kids, because I had kids later in life. And so I started having my babies when I was 31, all the way up through ages 41. And the busyness of that time and thinking that children were supposed to be fed carbs all the time, and they were supposed to be, I had the idea right about blood sugar, like that you could tell if they were crashing and having a fit or having a tantrum, that maybe their blood sugar was off. But it was giving them maybe peanut butter or graham crackers and having these constant snacks. And the snacks of choice for my kiddos, listen to this: applesauce, raisins. Where's the protein?
Yeah.
Pretzels, graham crackers. And so I thought I was packing them. Oh, cereal. I would buy cereal and put it in little Ziploc baggies and give them a little baggie of cereal to crunch on, thinking that I was helping their blood sugar and that I was helping them have good moods, and, not realizing that, it was damaging for all of us because I was eating that stuff too. And so I have a big problem with snacking, still do. And so that's a habit I have to consciously work on, like no snacking, separate meals with mini fasts in between is where it's at, this little grazy. And I will say that the high fat trend that happened over the last little while kind of got me back into snacking with the little tallow bites and butter bites and this. I'm like, oh, so anyhow, it didn't really come together, but it was my weight kept on getting higher and higher, and each pregnancy weight when I was high, I would kind of stay at that weight and I wouldn't lose the baby weight, and I'd start the next pregnancy at that weight. And then I'd gain another 30, 40 pounds. And then I'd be at the next one and be at the next one. And so my energy was bad. My mood was bad. I was in and out of depressive episodes, having a really hard time with my mental health. But just wanting to be that mom and just wanting to just be there for my kids. And, so I was pretending a lot. My pain was in secret. Okay. And so my food addiction was in secret. My bad habits were in secret. These were the secret moments that I had so much shame about and secrecy. So just getting to that point where I my weight had gotten really out of control, and was going to go on the surgery route, hoping that that would fix it. But of course, you and I know that probably wouldn't have fixed it either. And so I had my referral to get my surgery to do, I was going to do a sleeve surgery and talk to some friends that had done this for my kids, because I wanted to show up for my kids. I wanted to be like, I was an older mom, and I could tell I was already really not able to do a lot of activities with them that I wanted, and my energy level was not there. So I was making the best of it, but not understanding how out of whack my health was. So I was very fortunate that I came across Dr. Fung's book and fasting, and a very supportive friends, and was able to learn how to start healing myself with the ancient tool of fasting. And I was doing water fasting, clean fasting. And this was when I was about 46 was when I started that. So I was later in life, and it did that piece alone. I got incredible results of, but I still didn't have food freedom. And I still had like an addictive relationship with food. That word's a funny word. Some of us use it very liberally, and I don't know what to call it. An unhealthy relationship with food. And I was still eating unhealthy foods, even in the keto world. And so when someone,
I was going to ask, were you, when did you start eating more keto or low carb?
yeah.
Was that
So,
when you started fasting, or?
no, because there is a culture, there are certain groups and cultures in fasting that will literally say you can eat whatever you want in your eating window. Now,
Yes, I have heard that. I have heard that, and I'm just always so against that.
no.
Yeah.
But I get it, Rosa, because I came at a bunch of these things backwards. And
Mhm.
so I think of, to me, and I celebrate keto. I love the keto and the low carb space. And to me, I'm like, if you want to take it to the highest level, give this a try. I'm
Yeah,
biased.
it's like ultra keto, right?
Oh, that's how I feel. But I'm not saying like everybody could, to me, honestly, being at KetoCon was fabulous. I will say most of the panel speakers that had the most incredible testimonies did happen to be carnivore. They weren't like touting that or putting that out of there, but they just eventually kind of ended up there. But I love the healing of a metabolically healthy person through, whatever that is that can get you there. And so fasting was my segue to nutrition. And so I'm so thankful for it. And I think that that is how it is for a lot of people. But the initial concept that you can eat whatever you want in your eating window, and that was food freedom, that was not food freedom for me. I was still in bondage. I was still just like thinking about that. And then the actual food, because it's hyper palatable, once you just want more, there's never a stop button to it. And so for me, the freedom was to not eat hyper palatable food anymore. That was my food freedom.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a lot of people don't talk about that, the dopamine response. Even if you eat cheese or you eat like those keto treats, it's the same response where if you were to eat sugar or processed foods. I mean, it is better, but you're getting the brain response, the same to your brain.
I agree completely. And I think about that even with carnivore lately. And that's why, I mean, dairy, I can't ever say it's completely out. Oh, I was doing a dairy challenge, and then we took a trip, and I went to something, and they had this, it's like a gorp, like that granola mix we used to eat that had the raisins.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it was that, but it was at a meat store. They call it the candy store for carnivores. It's here in Cleveland, Washington. And
Ooh,
yeah, right.
that
Like
sounds
that's our
fun.
kind of place. That's our kind of place. And so I was in there, and they had this like carnivore gorp, and it did have some cheese in it. And so they had a spicy one and they had a regular one. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm gonna break my cheese fast. Darn it.
Well, and I feel like you have to live your life in those situations. And like you talk about in the community is like, even if you're trying not to do a certain foods that are still carnivore, if you are just in that situation, it's okay to indulge and to live your life.
It is. What's so weird though? It didn't taste that good. I was like,
Oh.
dang it. And I hear that all the time. I don't eat non-carnivore stuff, but we're in a community, and we're all different paths or whatever. And so I hear when people lots of times when they'll have the this or the that, they'll taste it, they'll be like, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, even. It wasn't worth it. And so
I have experienced that. Yeah. And I think we have in our mind that it used to be so good, right? And then we'll try it and we're like, this is not good.
I
And
know.
so
I
you
love,
have to weigh out, I think you always have to weigh out, is it worth it
yes,
to feel bad? And
yes.
most of the time it's not worth it. So
It is not. It is not. And even that measly little cheese wasn't worth it, but it's okay. But I love what you're saying about that in the carnivore diet, we can have some hyper palatable foods. And I think for some of us, we just need, it's just an honesty journey. We're not saying like it's the boogeyman, it's good or it's bad or we're dogmatic or, just know yourself and know where your peace comes from. And I don't think that that's a great idea to be eating dopamine hits from our food. And so if it's a food that's like, this like bringing you that, like I'm thinking let's not. I'm thinking we've got some other ways to get some dopamine. We can get our workouts in, we can spend time with each other. You and I are getting dopamine right now. Like
yeah.
there's so many other things that we can do to fill up these buckets inside of us. Like let's just let food be fuel. And I think that for carnivore, like that's part of the benefit and the desire and the attractiveness of it is for a lot of people, food just becomes fuel. Not that you don't have things you have to figure out and you have to, you have to know your body. But I think just from an emotional standpoint, let's stop using food as a state changer. So we've got some other good things that we can bring to the table for that.
Yes, I agree. Okay, now let's get back to your story. So you started fasting, you started learning about Jason Fung, which
Yes.
that's really how I implemented fasting too, is through Jason Fung's work with Jimmy Moore and their book that they wrote together. And getting into all that. So when you started fasting, how, did you just dive right into it?
Oh yeah. Don't do what I did. It's interesting. So some people can do okay. I actually did quite a few extended fasts. And that's not something that I really teach or coach anymore. I get it. I understand it because I did it myself. And I sometimes do extended fast, like once to 4 times a year. I'll do maybe like a 5-day or something. So it was interesting to learn that there's nothing inherently wrong with doing that though. Experimentally, I feel like it was really early in the fasting wave that kind of came over and the trend that came over in the health trend. And I think that now we know a lot more now that I think Dr. Fung's book came out in 2016. And so we've learned a little bit. We're a little bit along the way. So we've learned some of the nuances and some of the downsides and some of the signs to look for if you're doing too much fasting. So I can look at that time and I can say, yeah, I am thankful for it because it got me some deep healing, and those long fasts really can do that. But I don't advise that people go about it in that way. And what happens is when you kind of do that and over fast, and you get knocked on your butt, and then you don't want to fast ever again. And you think that all fasting is like, just get away from me, don't talk about it, because you pushed it too far. So very much like it reminds me a lot of exercise. If you just like ran out and did a big marathon, you're going to be trashed and you're not going to want to exercise anymore. It's going to trash the entire experiment. So it can be overdone. I think so I kind of learned the hard way. And so but I matured. And so over time, my approach to fasting matured where I would set small, reasonable goals first. And so I started doing more of like a baby step into it. Start with a 14-hour, next week, 16, next week, 18, so you kind of have this stair-stepping approach to get into it. And I highly recommend anyone that's thinking about that. Let's take the stair-stepping approach. Let's do some priming. You'll hear, there's a new book right now out by Megan Ramos. This is an intermittent fasting guide for women. And she talks about what she calls
I love her too.
Oh, she's the best. She's the best.
Yeah.
But she talks about what they call in the we're in Dr. Fun's network, they call it fat fasting. But the classic example that she brings up of fat fasting, I don't know if you've noticed, bacon and eggs. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah. And
Okay.
so when Megan Ramos writes about times that she does fat fasting in her past, that's what she does, bacon and eggs. I'm like, wow, sounds familiar. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So
So,
I,
so
yeah,
is it just, would it be a certain amount of bacon and egg?
that's the thing. So when you look at the definition of who's calling what, in the what we've been teaching, we actually do have a fat fasting program in Chisel that people can look at. And Kelly Hogan does a lot of fat fasting. There's a lot of fat fasters out there. It's different then. So it depends on who's defining it. So the fat fasting as per the definition in this, what do they call themselves now? What I forgot what their group is. I think
Yeah, I don't
fasting method.
remember.
It's called the fasting method is what it's
The
called.
fasting method, yes,
Yeah,
that
they've
is.
changed their names. It used to be intensive dietary management or something like that. So in the fasting method, when they're talking about a fat fast on the carnivore spectrum, it's actually very similar to priming. It's you eat whenever you're hungry, 3
Mhm.
times a day, plus snacks if you need them. If you kind of go through and read what they're trying to talk about, this ultra saturation, getting the hormones calmed down, getting your cravings under control, they absolutely will utilize fat fasting, but they'll include things like avocados, macadamia nuts, all kinds of things that are not going to be on the table for us. But yeah, fat fasting carnivore is a powerful tool as you're baby stepping your way in. And what Megan's doing a lot of in her fasting calendars, you can see it in the back of the book, is alternate day fasting, which is exactly what we're teaching. So I love it because we're so simpatico. And we had Mindy actually came on and did an interview with us and Bella, and we did a book study on her book, This Fast Like a Girl, which is
Yeah.
more, yeah, like a
And
hormone.
I read that book. I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. What's so interesting? It's like, okay, so we have fast like a girl and we have intermittent fasting for women. But when I read these, I'm like, these are there for everybody. This is not for girls. And like the teaching and the knowledge is in there is just like for everyone. So,
Oh yeah, but I
yep,
do think that that women do need to kind of go about it sometimes a little differently, just
I
because
agree.
they have a cycle.
Oh, I agree completely. It's just that so much of the book and the research and the studies and the for one are actually done on men, not women. So it's kind of interesting too. But
Yeah.
who are of benefit and interest, because you know what men are always worried about is, am I going to lose my muscle? That's what they're worried about. If I fast, will I lose lean body mass? It's like, no, your body's protective. Think about this ancestrally. You're going to preserve your muscles so that you can go get your kill for your next feast. We are
Well,
feasting.
and that's interesting because I noticed when I have done a little bit longer fast, that is when these instincts kick in. Like
Mhm.
I could smell like phenomenally. I could smell so many things like, and
Heightened.
then my eyesight was better.
Yes,
It's almost like you have this primal.
I agree. Oh my goodness. And I will call that the limitless pill over in the gang sometimes when you get, and it's this hyper focus. And it is a little bit, we give such a hard time to the sympathetic and parasympathetic. This is not parasympathetic. This is the sympathetic. It's time to focus and go get what you're gonna do. It's time to get your job done. And so I
Yeah.
think that what we really want to, think about is that we're phasing in and out of this. It's kind of like ketosis. Like you don't always have to be in ketosis. You're phasing in and out. You're flexing in and out. There's really healing things that are happening on this side when you're in sympathetic, and there's really wonderful things that are happening. If you can't ever get into parasympathetic, we've got a problem, but these balances are coming back and forth. And what a fast to me really does is it raises your sensitivity, your awareness. And we know that happens on a cellular level. Our cells become more sensitive. They become more insulin sensitive. They become more sensitive to when the fast is over, actually laying more muscle down. When you get the correct nutrition coming in, you've got the right stimulus. So it's all this like phasing through these different cycles. That's I think that is powerful when you kind of realize the hormone tools and the tools to unlocking feeling really good.
Well, yeah, and I experienced that when I was doing your program,
Yeah.
the feasting and fasting, which I did not expect, was that I my hormones got better,
Yes.
my cycle got better, um, just I think with a combination of carnivore and, the feast, really that feasting, which
Yes.
I've kind of gotten out of the practice of, and I need to kind of go back.
That's why we teach it though. And
And
that's
that's
why
the wonderful thing is you can kind of, if you kind of get out of it, you can go back. And because I think it's just more about being mindful of, like getting enough fat, getting enough of certain things. We have to kind of remind ourselves.
No, I agree completely. And so having that part of it come together in my journey, because I didn't understand the nutrition, I didn't understand the feasting in my earlier days with fasting. It still kind of worked out because I was morbidly obese. I was 150 pounds overweight. And
Mhm.
so I think that because I had that freezer, right? Dr. Fung compares it to having the freezer downstairs, the deep freeze,
Yeah.
your refrigerator versus your top freeze. So because I had that deep freeze, that I followed the rule. I always remembered what he said. He said, if you don't feel well, if you feel ill, stop the fast. It's like a very simple statement, but I
Yeah.
think about that. It's like, okay, if I'm not feeling good, it doesn't matter. Just stop the fast. It's no big deal. So what I didn't really know is and eat carnivore and get back to feasting. For me, that's my best place to get back to that home base. That's where I want to be. And so, but I think that having that other piece of it come along the way was so impactful because people can look at fasting as another dieting tool, as another restriction tool, as a self-punishing tool,
Mhm.
and can have kind of some mental issues with it too if it's used as a weapon and not as something that's actually an enhancement for our lives. And so I feel very fortunate that along the way, I heard about carnivore, decided to try carnivore because it brought safety to my fast. Like my fast felt really good, but my landings were bumpy and I was getting out of control in my landings with keto food. Keto foods were not the food for me. And so I do think that
Yeah.
that's kind of, a beautiful thing with fasting is that you can learn how your body actually functions best. But I think it's really important to ask that question and to figure that out. I hate the concept of fasting that you can just eat like trash and then fast and then eat like trash and then fast. Like your body's going to break down. You're just asking.
Yeah. And you're also, it's almost like you're negating the progress you made
I
by
agree.
you're re-injuring yourself with food, right?
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
so then you got to go through and your body has to try and keep up and so it's kind of like you really are going to get the most out of it if you can put the high octane fuel
Yes, yes, we're
there.
cooking with the real stuff. Yeah, I love that. I love that we become the Ferraris, and so we want to give ourselves the good fuel and the good gas in between our fill-ups.
Yes.
Mm.
So how long did it take, would you say, for you to lose that much weight? Was it a
It was 4 years. Yeah, it took me 4
okay, okay,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Because
it was,
you hear some stories with people that like they just lose 100 pounds, pretty fast, or some people it takes longer.
I got stuck. I had definitely, but I had plateaus, but I don't think of it as a negative thing. And I feel bad. I need to be more compassionate because when people are telling me about their plateaus, I do remember how frustrating it was. And yet when I look at it, they were essential and they were a huge part of why I got a long lasting effect. And for me too, I didn't have like a ton of loose skin. And so I think that the way that I lost it slowly, like lessened. I do have some, but it's not like what you would expect for losing about a person's size worth of fat. So there were some advantages for me in having it take a slow journey. And I feel like the slower, the better almost. And the more you can really learn the lessons and the lifestyles, because it has to turn into a lifestyle. If these choices that you're making don't turn into a lifestyle, then you're going to be back to not feeling good. And you'll just lead right back to, feeling sick again.
That is so true. And my next question for you is, how did your life change with, maybe your husband or your kids or your social life? Did that change at all when you lost weight?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely confidence was in a complete different category. Boundaries were better because, and that really came with carnivore. Like once you feel good about what you're eating and you realize it doesn't matter what anybody around you is eating, this is how I feel my best. That's a really good, healthy way to describe yourself and to describe if someone's giving you a hard time and they're like, oh, you can't eat that. Like, I can. I just know how I will feel, or I even know how I might feel. I don't want to take a risk. I don't want to take a chance. And so that's something that those of us that have taken control of our health, we do kind of have food pushers out there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
it's
it's hard because you know, in the beginning I had a hard time. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, or it's like so much emotion is with food. And but when I tell them, you know, I react really negatively. I don't want to feel like that.
so true. We had it last night. Joel's sister made us these ginger snap cookies, and she was so cute, Rosa, because she said, I made them with lard. And I was like, that is really sweet because they had eggs, they had lard, so they were animal-based cookies. I'm like, oh, I don't eat sugar. No, and she's like, I made them with brown sugar, and like it's so sweet, like the effort and
Well,
they thought about it.
yeah. And I've seen people too, even my own husband, he goes out of his way to try and find things for me. And then I'll look at the ingredient. I'm like, oh, there's something on here I can't have. Like, and I have gone, you know, before where I wasn't so strict and I didn't look, and then I was just miserable.
Didn't feel good. I know exactly. Yeah, so it's not worth it on the other side. My relationship with my kids, I mean, I just feel so happy that I turned it around when they were still home. I have I have four kiddos and they are ages 11 through 20 and they're all still at home. And so just for my daughters, especially for their hormones and their transition through, teenage, but they're now 17, 18. But, they didn't have the skin issues. They didn't have the mood issues. They didn't have that stuff because we've been keto or carnivore for about 5 years now. And so,
Wow,
yeah. And
that
my
is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. So, the one of the main motivators for me for the keto part was realizing how good it is for brain health and thinking like I would look at with my kids and be like, oh, they're kind of dealing with some anxiety stuff. I can tell that. And I would just know that their brain health would be better if I could get the healthy fats in them. So that was a huge why for me. And so I don't know, my kids are carnivore-ish because when they're with their friends, they make their own choices, do what they want. They have jobs, they have cars, they go to their grocery store on their own, but we don't buy anything. We buy meat. That's it. We buy and serve meat. And so I know that they're getting whatever it is that's happening in their lives, other places, they're getting a lot of balance from it, from, just eating with us at home. So I feel much better about that. My husband has gone carnivore. He's been, gosh, it's been a year and a half now.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, that
that's
has been super exciting.
awesome.
Yeah. And he even picked up cross training during part of that, the CrossFit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're on a break, but he was doing that for a while and he just like, cause so I'm 52, so he's 57. So he popped all kinds of muscles and abs and like his body
Wow.
really transformed and he had never experienced that. He never had like popping shoulders and so some of that was combining CrossFit with carnivore, but some of that was just doing simple like push-ups and sit-ups over little breaks that he'd take at work. And it's like,
So
you're
you
getting
guys are like the power couple who are like aging in reverse.
Oh, I love that concept. Yes, that's who I want to be. That's who I want to be.
Yeah, and you're showing everybody around you, all your friends, family, your
Yep.
kids. I mean, it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. He's had at his work, there's been several people that have gone carnivore now. And
Oh,
one of his
really?
friends that has completely come off their diabetes medication, has reversed their diabetes. And so, yeah, and I have one friend in my homeschool group that is also a mom that is also 100% carnivore, and she's doing great. She's a faster. So oftentimes when there's events happening, she and I will we didn't eat, we're not hungry, whatever. So we'll just go talk carnivore. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to have friends, you know, that share the same ideals and Yeah, and that's been a hard for me. I don't really have a lot, but I'm getting more friends.
Oh, good. Oh,
That actually, it was funny. I go to my local hot springs here.
yes.
I was talking to a lady. I see her every morning, and then I kind of talked about my journey with carnivore. And then all of a sudden one day she just said that she was going carnivore and that she was watching Bella's videos actually. And I was like, yes, it's so amazing. And she went carnivore and she started feeling amazing. And then we met up and shared a burger together. And
So fun. That is just such a cool moment. I've had a couple
yeah,
that.
it was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, we're eating the same food. She had a burger and we even had a slab of butter.
Yes, that's a real party. Now we're
And I
talking.
know,
The
yeah,
party.
and I think we just like in the carnivore space, there's a lot of people in the space like online, but
Yeah.
there's not a lot in person. Like I've never had a meal in person with somebody else before
Yeah.
her.
Wow. Oh, Rosa, I
And
can't wait. Yes, we're gonna have to.
yeah, well, because I I went like keto, a long time ago in 2015, and now that's become more popular, low carb and keto. But carnivore, we often just feel like we're in this island or this bubble. So
I
when you
tell
can find friends, that's the ticket.
It's so good. And I'm so thankful to like Lisa Weideman for starting all of these meetups. Rebecca does retreats now. There's carnivore retreats that you can attend. Actually, I saw more and more people are offering carnivore retreats. I know Coach Bronson's doing one.
Oh,
And I agree, like these community moments, even at Reverse Carnivore, for us to all hang out. Well, it's kind of funny because the crew would have their pizzas and stuff, the
well,
filmers.
and that's the next thing I was going to ask you about is reverse. Because that just popped up, on YouTube for me, and then I started watching. I had to kind of catch up, and then I saw you on there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Emily!"
So much fun.
And it
Yeah.
it looked like a lot of fun,
Oh,
but also it looked like so informative and like you were really helping people.
I couldn't believe it. I was just I was like, how am I even here? How is this possible? Because we had a panel that we had Dr. Chafee, Dr. Barry, and Dr. Kiltz all explaining carnivore from different perspectives, one from an emotional, one from an anthropological, one from a medical, and to have these powerhouse explanations with the studies right at their fingertips, with everything. It was incredible. And to watch Bella, she's such an incredible hostess, and she was facilitating these conversations and just really explaining her version with a high fat carnivore and how wonderful it makes her feel. She helped me lead a fasting class. So we did a teach in on fasting at one point, and yeah, having Maria was an incredible powerhouse. We had these two we had camp protein and camp fat, as we often do,
Oh
which was
yes, yes.
great. It was great. There were good, interesting dialogues and discussions. And I was happy for Maria that Bronson was there. He's a little bit more the, camp protein, whatever. So I didn't want her to be all on her own because most of us are team fat. But
Yeah.
yeah. And we had Sarah Zalvadar, who really got into the food addiction part and who, was explaining
Yeah.
about the sugar industry. And we had a man that was with us, Tim, that didn't yet even know that he was a raging sugar addict until he sat in and learned from Dr. Zalvadar and listened and identified himself and could see himself in that story. And he's off sugar. He's carnivore. He's 100% carnivore now. And so who knows what diseases we prevented in Tim's life.
Oh
So
yes. And it's funny because I think with addictions and sugar is just an acceptable addiction that we have.
totally.
And we don't realize how bad it is until we try and take it out. And then we're like, oh my gosh. Like you go through all the mental and the physical
Yep.
addictions when you take out sugar. I know I did.
Yep. Oh, I did too. And I think priming is a real power tool. It's a soothing balm in the sugar withdrawal period. So it kind of prevents you from under eating. It helps you with the sugar withdrawal issues. And the fat is so calming to that process as you develop new skills. Because we have to have new skills because it is kind of a sobriety walk, and we have to find the new things that we're going to do. But Reversed was incredible. Charles is going to be doing more. He's going to be doing some retreats. He's talking about a second Reversed Carnivore series.
Oh, nice.
So yep, there's going to be a lot more where that came from. And the series is doing so well, but gathering that this was a dream team. It was mostly doctors. There were just a couple of us coaches. I think me, Bronson, and Kelly and Bella were the only non-doctors there. Everybody else was doctor, 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 doctor. Like, oh man.
Yeah. Well, that was
How was
probably
that?
by design, also to show like, this is a healthy diet that's really changing lives, and we can look at it medically, with all these doctors. We have a lot of doctors in the community.
I love it. We've got fertility, we've got neurosurgeon, we've got, diabetes specialists, we've got family practice, and a cardiologist, cardiac surgery, so it is. I'm so proud of our credentialed influencers that are out there doing the hard work. And like Michelle Hearn was just on this panel of developing the new low carb recommendations as an option for our dietary nutritional guidelines, I want to say for 2025. But and so just having these powerful, passionate, truth speaking individuals has been, we're in good company. We're in really good company.
Well, we are, and I think we're just changing that paradigm shift. We're changing, and it's gonna it's not overnight, because everybody has to unlearn what they've learned through
We
all of,
do.
yeah.
That's one of the most powerful things that I can teach people is if I can teach them about the recommendations and the sugar and the, demonization of animal fats, like that's kind of like one of the basics. If I can just get some buy-in on that and just to show people, the truth about that, then we have some room that we can kind of grow into it and more. But it is cute. The questions that come, they're like, you don't eat fruit? Can you eat, is ice cream carnivore? Is like, oh, no, 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 no.
Oh, I know, even people that know me, I guess they forget sometimes, and they're like, oh, you can't have that. I'm like, no, I don't want that.
Isn't that the best? Because it's not a
Yeah.
restriction diet. It's just like, I want to feel good. So I choose not to. I think that is so important because that kind of language, the language that we tell ourselves really matters. So I think that throughout my journey, my language to myself changed, that health became like not something that I should do because we're all like, oh yeah, and I should go for a walk and I should watch less television and I should do the dishes and I should do my laundry. And, it wasn't that anymore. It's like, oh, I want to do this. And so I think that's another advantage too, when we say, oh, it took you 4 years, and I'm learning maintenance right now, Rosa. I have a range. I'm not the skinniest of skinnies right now. And I'm problem solving that and figuring that out and upping my fasting game and taking the dairy out. And, I'm still like learning this. I don't feel like I have arrived. But I feel like I know the things that work for me. And so that's a huge plus.
Well, yeah, and learning all that, because
Yep.
it's not just about diet, right? After you figure out the diet, then you have to figure out, how do I maintain it? How do I
Yeah.
stay motivated?
Yes.
What is my why? Emotional, all this stuff.
Yes. And the emotions and the stress. Oh my gosh. She talks about in this book too, Megan's book. It's just like, if you're in constant fight or flight, you can't ever get out of that. And you can't ever get to that relaxed zone. The body is in alarm state and it hangs on to everything, and your blood sugars stay high. And when your blood sugars are high and you've got insulin that's controlling, and that's the traffic controller, you really can't use energy efficiently. And so it's I think that all those other practices really come to mind. So I mean, lucky us, we have the rest of our life to keep learning all this and keep, just it's you have to manage your life. You can't just like forget about it and just be like, oh, I don't have to think about it anymore. It's like, well, it's important to just take those steps to make sure that you're feeling your best. So it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Yes, it is. Now, do you have any new projects, or is there anything new going on in the steak and butter gang that you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, I wrote a cookbook this last year, so that's a
Oh,
ton
you
of fun.
did?
Yep, and that's available only in the Steak and Butter Gang right now. I'll get it out there on all the places eventually. It's called a high fat carnivore cookbook. So you have to be in the gang and it's written as a workshop. So that's been a ton of fun. A lot of kid friendly recipes in there and desserts and snacks but just your basic casseroles. And so everything on there is kind of on that high fat zone. Yeah, I'm going to start podcasting. So I have to have
Oh,
you on my
yay.
podcast. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you have it. Do you have yours both on podcast and YouTube, correct?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yep.
And I found I started with just the podcast and then I started to put them on YouTube too, because I find people want both. So,
Yeah. And why should we limit it? We did the editing's already going to be done, that, you go through the work and do it all. So mine's not going to be highly edited. It's not going to be beautiful and polished with all the graphics. And it's going to just be I'm just getting started. And so I made it to 15,000 on my Instagram or whatever. And so, yeah, I was just excited. I'm like, well, I definitely have an audience. I have people that want to hear from me. So I'm going to try to be more active and develop a YouTube community. Steak and Butter Gang, we're doing good. We still have chisel workshop going over there. Raymond and I were teaching like twice a month, and we're still doing that. Coach Sally has been doing like recipe shares, and so there's stuff happening. So absolutely, like join. You can join. You can reach out to me on Instagram if you want to join the Steak and Butter Gang. So we have meetings, we have calls, we always have a chat box, and really people just want to help you. I've seen you in there recently, Rosa.
yeah, I
So
just checked back in there and I was so surprised by how much had changed, but it's really good to see like
yes.
other people stepping up in the
Yes.
community, like Sally. Um,
Yes.
I saw that and she is so inspirational. I just love
Yes.
it.
Yes. Absolutely. So that's the thing, is it is a community kind of an effort. And when some of us need breaks, other people pop in, and, as community members, we need breaks, and then we kind of come back in. And so, no, I think that that's going really well. I think right now, just, focusing on, podcast and, thinking about writing a book. So we'll see.
Oh, yes. I think you should because you have so much knowledge, especially with the fasting, the feasting, carnivore, and just, as a woman, as a mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I have one of my friends just said, you're writing a book and your deadline's due in a couple of weeks. Like, okay.
Oh, you better get on that.
Yeah, outline. I only have to have an outline. It's like, okay, I can come up with an outline in a couple of weeks. So, but yeah, so just a best way to find me really is on Instagram at Healed by Meat. And so I will keep my little updates over there. I'll link it to my YouTube as that starts developing. I'm available as a one-on-one coach. I love doing that. So I definitely have slots for coaching if people are wanting support in that way. And yeah, Chisel's going great. We've got a vibrant community there, SBG. So just lots of great happening, and watch for more happening with Reversed. Charles, he doesn't seem like he's stopping anytime soon to me. He has got more ideas coming. And so I think that we'll have more media coming. I know
Well,
he
that's
has
good. I mean, that's what we need. We need more things like that, because there's a lot on the other side.
I know.
And there's not much with carnivore.
There's not much. That's not much. So I know Courtney Luna's going to have a feature on Newsweek of some kind.
Oh, wow.
Anthony Chafee was just on 60 Minutes
I
Australia.
saw that yesterday. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's coming. And I know that CNN has reached out to Charles and Dr. Barry.
Hmm.
So I think that these things are just gonna, keep
Well,
on.
I really have seen more people have heard of carnivore,
Yes.
because when I first started, it was not very many people, but now when I talk to more people, they're like, oh yeah, oh, you're doing that carnivore thing, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I've been doing it for a while.
Isn't that so fun? Because yeah, and I feel like I'm baby brand new, but when I stop and think about it, I'm like, okay, Brett, who was one of my main influencers, is 5 years. Michaela's 5 years. Raymond's 5 years. Like, I'm almost 3 years. And so like, it's
Yeah.
weird. Like, it's not that different between 3 years and 5 years. Like, okay, I'm starting to become like an experienced carnivore. I like that.
Well, yeah. And even if you start carnivore and then you had some stops along the way, like I have,
Yeah.
like experimenting, and then we always find our way back
Yes.
to, for me anyway, what works,
I
you
love it.
know. And that's
Oh,
important. It's important to know like you have this foundation and you can just come back.
I agree completely. And that's how I feel about all of it. So for me, fasting is like that. It is a foundation that I will always come back to. And so yeah, finding these healing weightlifting, like, okay, maybe I'll get sidetracked or whatever. I'm back at it. I was pumping that iron this morning. My friend came over. For me, it's all about accountability. So if I have a friend to do it with me, then I'll
Oh
do it.
yeah,
So,
that
um,
helps.
yeah, it does, but those anchors are true, and so I think that it's just really worth it because it makes the whole rest of our life so much better and more enhanced. So yeah, I definitely hoping to be involved with KetoCon next year as well. So we've got these little things, all these retreats that are coming up that people can participate in, meetups, community, online communities. So yeah, there's ample opportunities to just keep the encouragement going. So I'm happy about that.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you came on today, Emily.
Thank
Now,
you.
what words of wisdom or advice would you give somebody who is, curious about starting a carnivore diet or meat-based diet? What kind of advice would you give them?
I think that it is one of the most simplistic, gentle things that you can do for yourself. And so just focus on those animal foods that you love. Start with bacon and eggs, buttery scrambled eggs. Try to figure out those types of, foods that are going to be affordable and that sound good. And then find some support, find a support network because it is it's simple, but sometimes like you just kind of need to see, well, what do you eat for breakfast, or what does your family have for dinner? Or, just even like for me, like it's variety. When I started carnivore, I had to have a lot of variety to make it doable and enjoyable. So you have to enjoy the process or else you won't stick with it. So bring as much joy to it as possible. There's bacon, like there's so much joy in this lifestyle.
Yes, I love that we can have bacon.
Yes.
Yeah, bacon and butter
Usually the
and beef.
answer. You always got to find out. Bacon might be the answer.
Yes.
Sometimes the answer is the beach. I always just say that. Well, should we just check and see? Maybe the answer is going to the beach. I don't know. And now it's like, well, you better check. Bacon might be the answer to that.
Yes, bacon is always the answer. Well,
Love
thank you so much, Emily, and I will talk to you soon.
I love you. Thank you. This has been awesome.
Bye.